Welcome to the Jewish Exponent Podcast. I am your host, Jared Safran. I am here today with the longtime radio voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, Merrill Reese. Merrill, you've been doing Eagles games for 47 seasons now. Is that right?
Yeah, just past 47.
Congratulations. I know how much you love it too.
I do.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you on because it's always good to talk to you. We actually did an article on you in December 2022 during what was a much better Eagles season. But I just thought it would be fun to fun in like a morbid or perverse kind of way to just talk about what went wrong with this Eagles season. But I want to ask, since you've been doing games for almost half a century, have you ever seen one quite like this, where the team comes in with Super Bowl expectations, they start 10-1, and then it just crashes and burns almost as fast as it started? Have you ever seen a season like this in your time?
I think for the 64 Phillies.
Okay.
People
Yeah.
might remember the 64 Phillies that had a 10-game lead with 12 to go, and they crashed, and we all just died watching and listening to that at the end of the season. Then there was Rich Kotite's last year, which was also the year that the team was purchased by Jeffrey Lurie. And he won a Monday night game against Minnesota, and they had won 7 games or whatever. And I think everybody got around him in the locker room and said, "Are you concerned about getting a contract with the new owner?" And he said, "I'll let my record speak for itself."
Yeah.
And then they lost 7 straight.
And he was done after that. Ray Rhodes replaced him. Okay, so that was a little bit comparable, but did that team come
in? Nothing, Jared, to answer your question, nothing like this, where they were 10-1, being talked about as the best team in football, and then boom, right down the drain.
But also coming in with Super Bowl expectations. I mean, they were the favorite in the NFC coming into the year. They got there last year. They came so close to winning. No one expected this.
No. Yeah. Nobody expected this. Although statistically or historically, there is a fear because generally the Super Bowl loser doesn't make it the next year.
Yeah, like how many, so you've been doing the games for 47 seasons. How many Eagles teams actually came into the year with legitimate Super Bowl expectations? Maybe a handful?
Maybe a handful.
Yeah.
I think Dick Vermeil's team back in 1980 made it a little before they were expected to make it. I think the Andy Reid's team was expected to make it, because they had won NFC championships and just fell short. I mean, not one. They had been they went to 5 NFC championship games, and made it one time. But they were right there again with the best teams in the National Football League, and that was the peak of Donovan McNabb and great players. But I think when you really talk about it, the one team that was kind of a surprise was the Doug Peterson team, which was expected to make it during the season because in that year, 2017, Carson Wentz was so great. But once he went down in that game against the Rams, I think most of us figured there goes the Super Bowl. Little did we know that Nick Foles would rise up and take them into the playoffs and narrowly win a game against Atlanta, then just murder Minnesota, and then went on to the great Super Bowl dramatic victory against the Patriots, Super Bowl 52.
And that team didn't even come into the year with Super Bowl expectations, maybe playoff expectations, but certainly not Super Bowl. 2022 Eagles, same thing. They didn't really have Super Bowl expectations. So maybe a few Andy Reid teams, and then this team, really. That's pretty much the extent of it. And those Andy Reid teams at least contended for it. But this team, completely different story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you do go on.
I was going to say, this was the biggest disappointment.
Yeah. In 47 years, that's saying something.
It is.
So you do the games each week, you travel with the team, you are around the team. It's really hard to put your finger on one or two problems with this team and what went wrong. So I'll just ask it in general then. What do you think went wrong?
I, uh, I believe the team was probably not as good as we thought they were. I mean, there were signs during that 10-1 start that they were struggling,
For
but
sure.
I used the word resilient. That this was the most resilient team I had seen. The way they would come back from deficits,
Mhm.
and also I said they knew how to win. Well, they forgot how to win. And I think when somebody sometimes exposes them, and I think they were exposed in that game against the 49ers, where they came downfield immediately with chunk plays and ended up with 3 points, and then stopped the 49ers cold, went down the field again, scored 3 more points, couldn't get into the end zone. And from there on in, it was all San Francisco. I think they opened up a template that other teams were able to really follow. And that was that this team could not handle the blitz. This team could not pick up the blitz on offense and defensively. They really, until that point, were pretty good in the run stopping department, and even that fell apart. And I think it took Christian McCaffrey to show them how to run against this team.
Mhm. Why do you think they were so bad at picking up the blitz? You wouldn't expect that from a team with so many good offensive linemen.
You wouldn't because there's more than offensive linemen involved.
Right.
I am very much a believer in Jalen Hurts. I think he is a great young quarterback, and even though people are down after this season, he didn't really have a terrible season. I mean, he still completed over 65% of his passes, still had a quarterback rating of almost 90, still contributed 34 touchdowns between passing and running. Turned it over too much, but some of that was the lack of protection. Probably didn't run as well as he did in other years. I think he was more a product of an offense that was not very good. The offensive scheme didn't seem to work. There weren't enough things happening in his favor for him to really have the kind of year he did in 2022.
Mhm.
He just you watched the offense and it wasn't clicking at the end.
So you think the planning and the coaching was a big reason why they had trouble picking up the blitz?
I don't really want to point fingers
Yeah,
at
yeah, fair enough.
one person or any one department. Let's just say that the offense itself
Yeah.
was not up to par. Not the it was not the kind. I had the feeling. I'm going to be really honest with you, Jared. In watching the four playoff games, the AFC and the NFC title games, those four games, I had the feeling that if you had put him in the Ravens offense, if you had put him in the Chiefs offense, if you had put him in the Packers offense that day, and if you had put him in the Bills offense, he would have still been a great productive quarterback. I'm
Mhm.
not telling you that he would have outplayed Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, but I tell you he would have succeeded.
Mhm. You raise an interesting point with Jalen now, 3 years into his time as the full-time starter. Is he a guy who elevates them, do you think? Or do you
Oh
think he
yes,
needs the pieces around him?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. He's a quarterback who elevates everybody around him.
Hmm.
I know that he's got a great arm. He's got great vision. He is somebody who really is smart, who studies, who's dedicated, who's the first one in the building, the last one to leave. He is a driving force. You know what's interesting? Last year, when they had that great year, everybody said the great thing about Jalen Hurts is that he never gets too high, and when things go badly, he never gets too low, and he's very modest, and he goes about his business, and he leads by example.
Hmm.
This year, all of a sudden, you hear, "Oh, he's not a leader because he's not going up again around the bench cheerleading people, and you don't see him barking at people or slapping hands on the field." That's Jalen Hurts.
Hmm.
That's who he is. He's not going to be the exuberant Patrick Mahomes and
Right.
do a million commercials. That's not him.
Yeah.
But what he is a very gifted player, a very cerebral player, a very dedicated player, and I think he is on his way to a great career.
Yeah. So there was an article that came out after the season about his leadership and about how he sometimes defers to AJ Brown for that role in the locker room. Sometimes he'll turn down his teammates for social events. I think it was the Inquirer's Marcus Hayes who pointed out during the season that he was standing by himself on the sideline a lot. Do you think there's anything to these leadership criticisms, or probably not?
No, really, no. I
Yeah.
do not buy them. I do not agree with them. I'm around the team every day. I go over and speak with Jalen Hurts every time he's anywhere near his locker. We chat a lot. I think he's a terrific guy. I know how much he cares
Yeah.
about his teammates. I know he does go to teammate functions. That doesn't mean he doesn't at some time or other have another place that he has to be or something that he has to, a conflict. But if he can, he always supports his teammates. Always. He's a terrific guy. I don't buy any of those assertions.
The article came out on Bleeding Green Nation, written by Joe Santoliquito. I want to make sure I give the proper credit here. So you mentioned the defense as well.
And by the way,
yeah,
I like Joe Santoliquito,
yeah,
and he did write an article several years ago about Carson Wentz, and I thought that article was um, pretty accurate in a lot of ways. I'm
yeah,
not backing up every quote, but I think there were a lot of things that he pointed out in that article that I did agree with.
yeah.
In this one, I totally disagree with most of it.
Well, time proved him right last time, though, right? I mean, the initial reaction to the Wentz story was pretty negative as well.
But
But it was time that proved him right.
there's no comparison, Jared, to
Yeah,
Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. They are two different people.
yeah,
Carson Wentz was a very gifted quarterback. He should have been the number one pick in the draft ahead of Jared Goff. But Carson Wentz, after that injury, where he had an MCL, an ACL, structural damage to his knee, was never the same. And Carson Wentz kind of went into a shell. And Carson Wentz was, I think, visibly upset when they drafted Jalen Hurts, which at the time they said was as an insurance policy. And he was never really part of the heart of that team in his last year, and then demanded to be traded.
yeah.
But these are two totally different individuals, and I heard people sarcastically refer to him as Jalen Wentz, and I cringed when I heard that because they're not even close to being the same type of individual. And don't get me wrong, Carson wasn't a bad guy, and I hope for his sake he rekindles his career at some point because he is still an exceptional talent.
Yeah.
But he failed in Indianapolis, he failed in Washington. Now he's the last heard he was with the Rams last year.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets another chance, and I wish nothing but the best for him. But he and Jalen Hurts are as far apart as you could possibly be.
Yeah, and the article did say that as well. It quoted some players who said, listen, he's not Wentz. He gets back up on his own, stuff like that. So the article did say that too. You mentioned the defense, which I think was something that confused a lot of fans just watching on TV. The run defense was so good for a couple of months there, and then it just dropped off. You didn't hear much from Jalen Carter in the back half of the season. Jordan Davis didn't make a huge impact. What happened with the run defense?
Don't know. It baffled me. I know there have been thoughts, theories that they really did a disservice when they changed coordinators at midseason.
Yeah.
And there was some confusion. You could see it on the field where guys were running off and running on and looking confused at times. They did wear down, but it was an awful run defense at the end. I thought Nick Sirianni was absolutely 100% right in playing the first stringers in the last game of the regular season against the Giants. because I thought this team had to come together and be ready for the playoffs. They had to be positive. And when at the end of the first half against the bad Giants team, they were down 24-0 at the Meadowlands, it was an embarrassment. They turned into a bad football team.
Yeah, really bad. Were there any other major issues that you identified just from your perch, calling the games, researching the team?
I think they need more talent.
Yeah.
On the defense, particularly the secondary. You know, you can individuals who didn't play as well as they did the year before. I don't think it was a team that was hit particularly hard by injuries. Sometimes, I mean, you look at the Doug Peterson Super Bowl team. I mean, look at the people they lost. They lost. They lost their best linebacker, Jordan Hicks. They lost their best offensive lineman, Jason Peters. They lost their kicker, Caleb Sturgis. They lost Chris Maragos, their best special teamer, and probably some others along the lines. But they found ways. What?
Wentz.
Yeah,
they lost the MVP of the league.
Ultimately, Wentz.
Yeah,
but I mean, but Wentz was with them for 3/4 of the season.
Right.
But I mean, but up until that, but they going that far each week they were losing somebody else.
Yeah,
and yet they still got the right team together. I mean, they made a brilliant move in picking up Jake Elliott off the Bengals practice squad, and he won the game against the Giants with a 61-yard field goal that I still believe turned that whole season around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're right. This team wasn't really hit that hard by injuries. That was not something that
it really wasn't.
Yeah, not at all. So
I mean, last year they lost for a big portion. They lost Chancey Gardner-Johnson. And he was a big player at safety. Mm-hmm. So I mean, they did lose some people, but it was not a team that can use injuries as an excuse.
Yeah, that's another layer to this. It's an interesting point. So we're in the offseason now for the Eagles, at least. They have kept Nick Sirianni. They have hired 2 high-profile coordinators in Vic Fangio for the defense, Kellen Moore for the offense. It seems like from my fan perspective that we're entering what might be an interesting scenario in which the coordinators are close to being as high profile as the head coach himself. And we're also not sure of the power arrangement between those 3. So what do you think of this new situation now as we look ahead to the 2024 season?
You know, I don't know, Jared, that they're more high profile than they were the year before.
Yeah.
Because I thought that Shane Steichen was a pretty big controlling force on that offense. And I thought that Jonathan Gannon, even though Angelo didn't like him too much on the morning show, Jonathan Gannon is a very bright coordinator. I thought they did very, very well. And I thought they played a big role. And I'm not pointing my fingers again at the coordinators because it just didn't work out that well. I still think they have bright futures in the National Football League. I think that Brian Johnson was running at one press conference. Nick Sirianni said, the offense is my offense, and Brian Johnson is running my offense. If you want to point a finger, point it at me. And it was Nick Sirianni's offense. But the year before, it was really Shane Steichen was the guy calling the plays and keeping that offense going. And I thought that Jonathan Gannon was underrated by a lot of people. Now, they talked about the last half of the Super Bowl when things went awry. And I believe probably there was some criticism that was legitimate right there. But the fact of the matter is the offensive and defensive coordinators are extremely, extremely important. And they were then and they are going forward.
Yeah. Do you view these as the types of hires that they needed going forward?
Yes.
Moore and Fangio? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what do you like about them?
No, I like them both. I like the newness of Kellen Moore. I think, you know, when he was dismissed by the Dallas Cowboys, do you know what Mike McCarthy said about him? That he was too consumed with lighting up the scoreboard. Well, wonderful. I want my offensive coordinator to light up the scoreboard. I hope he makes the scoreboard explode. I mean, what he was saying is he wanted to run more and give
Yeah.
the defense more time to rest, which is nonsense. I mean, you want to put as many points up on the board as you possibly can. And as far as Vic Fangio is concerned, he is a tried and true defensive coordinator. Didn't have much success as a head coach in Denver, but as a coordinator, he's been outstanding in almost every stop, going back to the Stars, the Philadelphia Stars, the USFL, when he broke in.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I know you're still confident in Sirianni. Where is your confidence level going into next season after this season and after they felt like they had to hire two pretty high-profile coordinators?
I don't I don't think I use the word I don't think I like to use the word confident, saying that I'm confident that they're going to be back making a run for the Super Bowl. I can use the word encouraged. I'm encouraged by the quality of the coordinators that they picked up.
Yeah.
That this team can take an off season and analyze their mistakes and figure out where they're going to go forward and add some people in the draft and free agency. So I'm encouraged, confident that will build over the first part of the season.
Makes perfect sense. What else do you want to see them do in the offseason before the new season begins?
Well, I would like to see them bolster the linebacking department. I think that is necessary. I think they also have to pick up some secondary help. I think they have some very good young players to watch. I like what Reed Blankenship brings. I think that Keely Ringo has talent. He could move in and become a very good corner. They have Zach McPherson, who was a promising young corner coming back from a season-ending injury that he suffered in the preseason. I like Zach. There are others that look to me like players that could come on. I think that this year you're going to see Jalen Carter hold up longer and be the kind of house wrecker that he can be. I mean, he can really put a quarterback into a bad position. And I think Jordan Davis, especially, Fangio's known as a 30 defensive coach with a three-man front. I could easily see Jordan Davis being a terrific nose tackle in a 30.
Makes sense. Do you think they need to start emphasizing positions that they don't always emphasize, like linebacker, as you mentioned, and safety?
Yeah, they may say they have emphasized linebacker to a point, and that they've looked all over. But I think that in terms of productive players at those positions, there haven't been very many Brian Dawkins or or Jeremiah Trotters come along in a long time.
Yeah.
I think one young guy, Jared, that I would watch is number 21 out of the University of Illinois, Sidney Brown. I think he could be a terrific, terrific safety. He's coming back now from an ACL, but you saw the kind of athleticism he has when he took an interception 99 yards back against Arizona. I think he is a terrific young player who will just keep getting better.
And talking about Jalen a little bit more again, do you think we'll see him? I know he was hurt this past season. Do you think we'll see him get back to taking off more on the run like he did in 2022? Because I think that's such a weapon for him.
Yes. But after 2022, there were people who said that they wanted to see him run less and put himself less at risk. And there were times early in the season when he was wearing that sleeve on his knee, most notably against Miami, when people were saying, boy, this is good for him because he's become a really good pocket passer. So I think you want him to run, but I also think you want him to slide.
Yeah.
I don't think you want him to see him take on linebackers. I don't think you want him to be Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, who are reckless at times. I think you want him to be Jalen Hurts and be the Jalen Hurts he was more in 2022 than 2023.
That's fair. It does seem like the formula for success with him would be similar to the formula with a Jackson or an Allen, just because of his running ability and the way you can build an offense around that.
Well, yeah, I think it helps. I don't want to see him not run.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see him throw his body. I remember Lamar Jackson missed most of, not this past season, but he missed most of 2022 with injuries.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen early in the season, oh my goodness, he was a mess. He
Yeah.
was so reckless running and throwing the ball. So I think you want him somewhere in between.
Why do you think the team abandoned the run so much too this past year? Because they were still pretty good at it.
They were at times, but they took what the defense gave them, and it
Yeah.
didn't always work out. And they got some pretty good production out of what they got really from their running backs. I thought that the pick of DeAndre was a good one. I thought that even the player that often gets criticized, their third down back, did not do a bad job. But Kenneth Gainwell, I think they brought him in a lot of times not only to run and catch, but because he was a good blocker. And I am partial. One of my favorite players on the team, but both on and off the field, is Boston Scott. I think Boston Scott has a burst.
What do you think they should do at running back next year? I mean, it really doesn't seem like a position you need to emphasize too much when you have Hurts in this line. Pretty much any back they've thrown in there has done pretty well. But what do you think they should do?
Well, I don't know that they're going to be able to keep DeAndre.
Yeah.
Because he's there on a 1-year contract, and they're not going to open the bank to keep any running back. I mean, they got away from Miles Sanders the year before, and they picked up DeAndre, and he did well. But I don't know that they're going to pay what it's going to take to keep them.
Right.
I still think they could possibly draft a back at some point or pick up somebody that think is good free agent. But I'd like to see them get another big back. I remember back in the Super Bowl year in 2017 and into the Super Bowl, they got a lot from a guy they picked up, and I didn't think it was a good pickup when it happened. I thought, he's past his peak. But LeGarrette Blount turned out to be a star.
Oh, he was great. Yeah. Really a great running back to have in big games, LeGarrette Blount, because of the way he can just eat the clock. Yeah.
But look, I do like what they got from DeAndre Swift. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah.
He gained over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. And don't forget, he came here with the tag not durable because he never really made it through a season with the Lions. But Swift turned out to be great.
So, last question about next season. Jason Kelce, Philly legend. If I had to predict it now, I would say he's probably not back. But what do you think?
If I had to predict it now, I'd say he's probably not back.
Yeah.
But when March turns into April, and April turns into May, and May turns into June, and they get closer and closer to training camp,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to go on in his head. I consider him a friend. We've golfed together. He's as amazing a person as most Philadelphians think he is.
That's
He's
great.
just a great guy, but he has such a passion for this game that I don't know that he's going to be able to resist staying away. It's hard to tell. I personally would like to see him and Brandon Graham retire. And I'm saying this from a personal standpoint. I always talk about Brandon Graham in this way. If I go into the facility on a morning and I bump into Brandon Graham, my day just got better. He's got that kind of warmth and uplifting personality and passion, and he's so good in the locker room. But both of these guys have played 14 seasons, and how much battering can their bodies take? I want them to be able to be healthy at 50 and enjoy their lives. And I think they've both had enough from a personal standpoint. I'm saying that I consider both of these guys as friends. And if I were advising them as a friend, I'd say, listen, it's enough pounding that you've taken. You have to know when to get out. I think they can both play. I think Jordan could go. I think that Jason Kelce could go back next year and still be one of the best centers in football. And I have no doubts that Brandon Graham, and he probably will, and still rush the passer. But for their own sakes, I think it's time. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Kelsey did say recently he wanted to remain a part of the organization. I wonder if having a front row seat to his brother's latest run to the Super Bowl is making him want to stay involved in some way at least.
Look, there are thoughts that his brother could retire.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Um, so your contract runs through 2024. We mentioned in our story on you in December of 2022. You'll be back this year, I assume, for a 48th season.
I hope I'm back for many, many years.
I know you've said that before, and yeah, that was my next question. So even beyond that, you want to be back?
I want to be back until uh, I want to be back forever. There's nothing in the world. Look, I love to play golf,
Mm,
but I would love to. I would rather broadcast an Eagles game than anything in the world. It's what I love to do. I thank goodness I feel great. My
yeah,
vision is the same. It's good, very very good. It's as good as it's ever been.
yeah.
Uh, I don't believe my voice has changed,
Mhm.
and I've been blessed in that I can still memorize a 53-man roster in about 20 minutes. So,
That's impressive.
and I think after doing it for so many years, I have the license to say what I believe without feeling that my job's going to be taken away from me because I've been honest. Because I respect their fans so much, so
Yeah.
that I think when I said on the broadcast from Tampa Bay, right now this is a bad football team. I
Mhm.
think I have the right to say it. I
Yeah.
don't think I would have ever said that in years 1 through 10.
Right.
But so I think I've earned the right to be honest with the best fans in football. So I have no plans to retire. It's what I love to do, and as I said, I feel great, and I feel as if I'm at the top of my game.
Merrill Reese, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jared.